Hi, I'm George Kim, the developer of Blender Addon Citigen. This is to show you how to use Unreal Engine 5 specific features added in version 2.0 of Citigen. What you're looking at is a result of several hours of using Citigen-Ultimate and Unreal Engine 5. The computer used was Core i7-12700F running on 64GB of RAM and a single RTX 3060 Ti. If you want to follow this tutorial with just the regular version of Citigen or Citigen Classic, please limit your city size to about 10 blocks and brace yourself for a long input time into Unreal Engine 5, like several hours. Though you'll run into some obvious unfinished texture issues, you'll be able to drive around in the end. But I strongly recommend you to switch to the Ultimate version if you're serious about using this feature. So, let's jump into Citigen-Ultimate. Let's try with the 30 city blocks. Since we're using Citigen-Ultimate. If you're using Citigen Classic, stay with number 10 or below in the city block sections. And please note that the big to small block ratio is set to 4 because the default is 3. In the default setup, you have lots of small streets where cars cannot go through. So here we are. And the first thing to note is the ground collision setup, ground size for Unreal Engine. This is where you adjust the ground for ground to be used in Unreal Engine 5. It's not for render in Blender. For this case, this number wasn't up. After setting up the ground collision, and let's adjust the bridges. Setting up bridges might require a separate tutorial, but since we're not, and this tutorial is not about bridges, but it's about export to Unreal Engine 5, let's reserve the topic for a later tutorial. And let's presume that you're happy with the result, with how the bridges look. And once you're satisfied, once you've settled with the look of the bridges, let's save the files. And now click Load Game-Friendly Default Buildings. And now you're in game mode. And the building assets has been changed to game-friendly versions, which takes up less memory on computer. And you might need to change the look or further adjust the look of the buildings and the city by clicking on Building Variations. With game-friendly assets, the export time and time gets drastically reduced, and you can create this size levels. Without it, it will take forever. You won't be able to make it in the Citigen regular version or Citigen Classic. Now it's time to save the file before going any further. And once you're done, click Prepare for Mesh Export Now this process converts instances into regular objects that Unreal Engine 5 can recognize. Let's speed up the screenshots. And once the conversion is finished, Citigen will select the bridges so that it can assign UV maps to it before exporting to Unreal Engine 5. Now go to the mesh section, mesh property panel, and go to attributes and scroll down to the bottom and find UV map data and click on it and convert it to click convert attributes and change the generic to UV map and click OK. Now the bridges have its own UV map that Unreal Engine 5 can recognize. And now export this, export the bridges and the ground as FBX file, and be sure to go into the textures folder. That folder gets created when you save the file. And let's add the name bridges to it so that it can recognize it as different from other parts of the city. And in order to reduce the export time, be sure to export the mesh only with no animation data or modifier data applied to it. Please remember this setting and click Export FBX. Selected objects only, mesh, no animation data, no modifiers applied. After exporting the bridges and the ground, now it's time to export the other parts. Let's go to Select and Invert, and you'll have all the other parts selected, and let's export them with the same setting with a different name, without the name bridges. Let's save it to FBX files. It's the same setting. Go into the textures folder. Be sure to go into the textures folder. Otherwise, Unreal Engine 5 will not find the textures. It will take a while. And after exporting, now it's time to go to Unreal Engine 5. Among the production files included in your Citigen-Ultimate version, you'll find a zip file named Citigen-to-Unreal-Template. Unzip the file and put it into Unreal Projects folder. And let me speed up the screenshots and click on, once the folder is open, click on Citigen-to-Unreal-Template. And this will open up Unreal Engine project file and delete the previous FBX Citigen data from this file before importing your own. Once you delete them, click File, click Import into Level, and go to the folder, go to the Textures folder, and find the bridge file, and select where to save, and remember these settings before clicking import. Don't change it. These are not defaults. Remember these settings and click import. And once the bridges and the ground gets imported, it's time to check the bridge's UV maps and the collision setup, and click on static mesh and check if the UV looks fine. It looks okay. If you need to, you should click the material slots and adjust it. No, it looks fine, so let's assign collisions to these bridges. Let's use this geometry as collision. Come down to collision and select use complex collision as simple. And now let's check if the ground has a correct collision setup. Click on static mesh and come down to collision. And if you find custom collision checked is set up correctly by Citigen. And now it's time to import the other parts of the city. Go to File, select Put into Level, and locate the file and open it. And it took me about 4 minutes. And this dialog box comes up, and select Open. And it took about 40 minutes for the import process to complete. And once the process is complete, you'll have this screen. Now, close these windows and click on the play button. Oh, before going any further, we need to save the file. Save this production file. Go to File and Save All. And all is left to click on the play button. Click play. There you go. Now, W is forward, S is backward, A goes left, and D goes right. And with mouse, you can turn the views. And now it's time to explore the cities. Now, if you, while on the bridge, sometimes you might notice that the textures are stretched in one direction too long, or they are too short. In that case, you can adjust the texture mapping of the bridges. Now, let me show you how to do it. Once you get out of this game mode, click on the bridges file to edit it. And click on the static mesh of the bridge, and In order to change the material, click on the material slots. Let's check. Before clicking on the material slots, let's check if the UVs are stretched in one way too long or not. Once you see, usually it's the x-axis, so adjust these values and this will stretch or compress the textures in x directions. Once you're satisfied, click yes and close the overpass and close the windows. Oh, you might need to check by getting out of this window if the UVs are changed correctly or not. After repeating that procedures, once you are satisfied, you can close these windows and see the corrected bridges. Now let's go back to the gaming mode. So this wraps up our tutorial for exporting Citigen to Unreal Engine 5. I hope you find this tutorial useful and hope you have a lot of fun. Thanks for watching. I'm George Kim from Citigen.